Well, hey, everybody, and thanks so much for tuning into this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. I am so psyched about today's show because I've got a returning guest, the one and only Mr. Jim Belushi. He's going to be back here with us today talking about his upcoming new season of his show and talking about a new partnership he has. And the partnership he has is with a gentleman who's turned a lifelong passion for growing cannabis into a career back in 2004 when he and his wife opened their first hydroponics retail store, and he's here today to give some tips on how to grow your own cannabis. And today he is the vice president of GrowGeneration Management Corp, the nation's largest chain of specialty hydroponic and organic garden centers. GrowGen recently partnered and announced a partnership with Mr. Jim Belushi and of Jim Belushi Farms to outfit their newest greenhouse. Jeremy Corrao, thank you so much for being here, along with the one and only Mr. Jim Belushi. Thanks, guys, for being a part of Let's Be Blunt today.
Thank you very much.
Nice to be here. Nice to be here.
Absolutely, Jim. I mean, how have you been doing, my brother, since the last time I saw you?
Well, the last time I saw you, I've been doing good. It's been a turbulent year for everybody. I know, because of what this year has been about. And I didn't escape any of that turbulence. It's been turbulent on the farm. It's been turbulent on my life. And it's been turbulent with the big changes that are going on all around us. So
all around us. Yeah, I mean, it's almost crazy.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's almost crazy how it's like, the world has stopped, flipped the page, and created a brand new chapter that I think everybody's going to have to start getting used to. You're coming back with season 2 of Growing Belushi. Is that not right? Congratulations. Yay!
We're very excited about it. We've shot almost all of it. We got about 4 more days to do some pickups, to make some segues work. But yeah, we just finished on the farm, and the show is, it's about 3-4 levels going on. And I mean, first it's growing cannabis. Second, it's what it does to everybody on the farm. And third, it's like, what it does to me as a man, because I've kind of grown as a man along with the understanding and the depth that this plant has taken me through emotionally.
And I guess, are you featuring? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, are you featuring what Jeremy has done to help you build out your new?
Jeremy, GrowGeneration, actually gave me the spine and the backbone for this season of Growing Belushi, because when Jeremy came to my farm, he basically said, no, get rid of that, no. I go, you're like some interior designer that's trying to change my house to like put a commission on this or something. What are you doing?
Wow.
He was right. I had aphids, I had rustic mites. I had, my environment was not in great control. The greenhouses I did have were too short. The plants were growing too big. The moisture on the top of the ceiling was dropping. I lost 300 pounds of mold last year. And Jeremy is so astute on what a grow needs, contains, and what will be, the ultimate grow. He basically took this farm and made it probably the best grow in Southern Oregon as far as an interior quality greenhouse grow. So yes, Jeremy came in, and we've grown 2 brand new Grow Tech greenhouses with environmental controls, with a total grow control brain that will control our Foch lights, which is, we went from regular Gavita lights to LED lights, which brings the heat down in the room, and a 30% more penetration into the plant, which stimulates 30% more yield. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, the looms, these plants like 1,100 looms, and that's rays of light. And when a cloud comes, those looms go down about 750. This total grow control brain senses it, brings the lights up to bring those looms back up to 1100. Then it's consistent. It's clean. It's a controlled environment. I'm so excited about this grow this year. I can't even tell you. Anyway, growing Belushi is about, the main storyline is about this transition on the farm. So, because I want the audience to understand it. Look, the real word is confidence in cannabis. And I don't think the audience, the new consumer, really has any confidence around what a dispensary looks like. Should I go into a dispensary? Is this clean? Well, we show every moment from the clone to the sale. All the pesticides we use are all natural. Everything's clean. They see the handwork. They will have confidence in what they're going to ingest, consume is clean, high quality, and cared for. And with the GrowGeneration and what they've given us, we have that kind of control to make it the highest quality and the cleanest and safest cannabis. So, yes, Jeremy, he's sitting right next to me, and I'm not letting him talk, but he's the brains behind the whole thing.
Well, Jeremy, I'm gonna get you in 1 second, but I think we ought to do for just a quick second, Jim. Let's back up a little bit because
All right.
a lot of people, they know you from your incredible career, as an entertainer and a talent. I mean, there's no question. You hit the pinnacle of that genre of employment, but now all of a sudden, Jim Belushi, cannabis. Give people an idea of, number one, why you started, when you started, and what was your goal when you first decided to go ahead and jump 2 feet into this industry?
Well, I thought it was 2 feet, but I mean, I'm talking about 2 feet, 20, and I went into 6 yards. I get into it. I don't know. I just explore things and heighten. Like what we do in improvisation. You explore an idea and you heighten it. And I've been that in my life and on stage. And I don't know what I was doing. I bought this beautiful property in Oregon because it felt like a spiritual vortex in the world for me. And I felt very good there. My heart, my soul, things calmed down. The farm came up for sale behind me and I bought it, 80 acres. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to grow cattle or corn. And cannabis became illegal. And I thought, new agriculture. It's the new agriculture for Oregon. They go, pears, grapes, cannabis. All right, let's try it. So I put my 1 foot in and got sucked into cannabis.
Got sucked in that vortex. You got sucked in following, your heart. And your heart was all about making sure that you could produce a really efficacious, respected plant that would actually, set a standard for the state.
Well, I didn't know that. At that point, it was like the gold rush. And I'm like, yeah, sounds good. And, these girls I refer to as the plants because they're feminine plants, they straighten your ass out like a kindergarten teacher, and they slap you until you learn what's really going on. So this was a real education for me about the spiritual and the medical values of this plant. So I've been the last 5-6 years on I don't know, I consider growing Belushi my master's thesis or something because I've learned so much about how it changes people's worlds, their families, their bodies, it's not just about the money. It's not just about getting high. This is a world of healing. And look, I need a lot of healing. And these plants have brought me a long way just by being next to them and growing them.
The world needs a lot of healing right now. Jeremy, what brought you to, well, first off, how did the two of you find each other and when did you say, yeah, I think I'll come up and help you out? When did this happen?
Yeah, we kind of met through a mutual friend through one of the other facilities. Flew out there. We had a couple meetings in the beginning. kind of put some things together, seeing if it was going to work. Flew out to see Jim, and that's how it started. I think we hit it off from the beginning.
And let's back up a little bit and give people. Go ahead, Jim.
Bull. That is a bunch of bull. He came out, he walked that farm, and that bald little head of his was like, what? Say something.
That's how we hit it off well, you know?
Gotcha.
But terrible.
Jim's not used to people telling him, like, hey, you got to do it this way.
You got a couple things off here, so we better straighten them out, huh? Back up a little bit, Jeremy. Give people a little sense of your history. Now, you and your wife started your company years ago, but have you always been an aficionado of cannabis, or were you a farmer?
I have, yeah. Honestly, from a teenager, growing plants outside, going all the way till when the medicinal, world started to hit. And I've had my medicinal card, from the very beginning. I live on the East Coast, so I live in Connecticut.
I did a lot of lobbying in Connecticut to make sure your laws got passed. So just so you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Back in the day, back a long time ago. Yeah.
So surprising, right? With everything that just passed now, I mean, you couldn't even think that was going to pass. So
no, I think I testified before the Connecticut legislature, I think in 2001. You know what I mean? That's how long ago I was literally trying to see if I can convince them to move, the initiative forward. So I'm glad that at least you've gotten where you got to now, and you're moving forward. But you grew up in Connecticut. I grew up in New York. I had a house in Greenwich for quite a while, and then I moved into Manhattan. But I remember back in the day, most of the cannabis I consumed came in from New Hampshire or from Boston. Didn't come in from kind of Connecticut. So you're surprised that Connecticut's moved the way they have, are you not?
I'm very surprised. I mean, and how quickly, right? When they released the bill, and then all of a sudden, what was it, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, and it's like, okay, yep, it's done.
Well, I had to. I mean, when you take a look at New York State passing, New Jersey passing, what New Jersey has done, everybody around you is doing their thing. Massachusetts passed, Connecticut was going to get left out. So they wanted to get their chunk. And I think that's what we're starting to see now nationally. Everybody wants to sort of figure out how they can get their chunk of those federal tax dollars, which may not necessarily be the greatest motivation, but at least it's moving.
Well, I think it's great motivation for the states, right? Because it gives us what we want in the end, right? So the byproduct of their greed is our successfulness later on.
Yeah, but let's just hope that we get some sensibility in this level of greed that's coming out of the state legislators. I mean, these guys are taxing to the point of stupidity. You want to say something, Jim? Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I'm over here commenting like, yeah. I mean, California, they're the sensibility. They're just really hurting the market. I mean, there are some great models out there in Colorado and Oregon on how to set up these legislation, how to set up the laws to make things work, and they just want to do it themselves in their own way. And but it'll all get straightened out.
I hope it will, and I don't see it happening in the near future, but I think within the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see some things finally come together when people start to realize, that we are nothing more right now than the Wright brothers pushing those wooden planes down a hill. This industry has not even grown beyond that yet. We have so much growth in front of us, and if we will stop being so short-sighted, I mean, it's like, even as an industry, I think the industry itself is very, very short-sighted. You were talking earlier about, the beauty of what you're doing in, your show, Growing Belushi, and letting people see the plant from, A to Z, which is really, to me, about education.
Yeah.
Not only educating other growers and other providers, but trying to educate who is going to be the most important part of this entire equation is the consumer. I mean, from my standpoint, I think, we as an industry in the last, even right now, even when, states have recognized that cannabis is a vital resource and during COVID didn't shut us down. We should have taken advantage of that opportunity to go right at the consumer and say the reason why we're recognized as such an important aspect of our society is because even the government recognizes how important cannabis is to our lives, but we didn't do that. We spent more time trying to figure out how we can make this deal, that deal, that deal, that deal, that deal, going B2B, and not recognizing that without a C, B2B don't exist.
Right.
That's why I applaud what you're doing, my brother, by letting people into pulling the third wall back.
Well,
Not only at the plant, but taking a look at the heart of the person who's delivering the product.
The idea about growing Belushi that I think GrowGeneration really like, or Advanced Nutrients, or a lot of the people that are involved in my show, is that we're reaching the new consumer. We're reaching the curious. I mean, honest to God, there's this 37-year-old girl I was talking to, consumer all her life, right? And I said, well, you should go to the dispensary. She goes, oh, no, I've never been in a dispensary. I go, wait, well, you're a very nice woman. You're smart. You're a consumer. Like, you've never been in this dispensary? No, I'm nervous about going in a dispensary. So there's a whole section of the show where I literally, this is what a dispensary looks like. It looks like an Apple store. Look at these pretty people that are bud tenders. They're like pharmacists. They're not, but they understand the plant. You come in, you say, I have this ailment, this shoulder, this knee. I can't sleep. They'll direct you into what products to use. It's all safe. It's all the most important thing. Tested. There's no crap in it. It's packaged well. Please go in a dispensary. Quit buying it from the guy in the street. You don't know if it's been tested. It's keeping the illegal market flourishing. It's keeping crime flourishing. So the show, I'm fortunate because I had, according to Jim, and there's a lot of, red, blue states, whoever watch that show, they may come in, and they have come in and seen the show. So I'm trying to lead the new consumer confidence.
Absolutely.
Because, we all.
Oh, no, I'm agreeing with you, because I got to tell you, I think not only will you help to attract the new consumer, but you're actually cutting your way into the biggest demographic in America that should be consumers, and that's the baby boomers of our society. They're afraid.
Wait a minute.
But they forgot that they were smoking that joint under the bleachers, 25 years ago. And it's their friends who are now the legislators who are passing the laws.
Yes.
What we need to do is spend more time directly at them. I'm living down here in Florida. Come on, this is baby boomer capital of America. But how many of the dispensaries, how many of the providers down here are going out to educate in some of these communities that are baby boomer centric communities?
Well,
they're not going out, and they need to get out there and do this.
I'm at literally last night. I'm at a family-ish reunion, cousins and all that, and they're like in their 60s and stuff, and they're all, Jimmy. So, I have trouble sleeping. Is this something? Boom. I'm like,
but does that not show you right there, straight up, that we need to do a concerted effort to educate the masses?
Well, the Belushi is the attack I'm taking on it is what I call edutainment.
Yes.
It's comedy. It's funny. My cousin Chris is hysterical. Jeremy is actually pretty funny in it from time to time. And I'm kind of the guy who leads through the humor and the education. So it's editing wise, it's really weaving, trying to keep the comedy and keep you entertained, just so Absolutely. I can the confidence of the cannabis, So that's the purpose. And it's very funny. I mean, it's a very funny show. We do some funny things in it.
That's the blend that we need to have. And Jeremy, with you, brother, when did you decide? You decided to open up your first hydroponic shop, what, in 2004?
2009.
2009,
yeah,
but you
started it in 8.
In 8.
Yeah.
And what brought you to the hydroponics?
I think I was always working with people at that time. I started doing some commercial builds. I had a lot of my own grows up at that time, growing for patients, and it just seemed like the direction I wanted to go at that time. So,
did you
that was
ever
the
face any pushback from, local, state, or federal law enforcement about what you were doing?
a little bit, but I think everything was pretty clean. It was put together really well. They had nothing to really fight us on going into it. And, at that time, you had to be very careful. We weren't growing cannabis, we were growing tomatoes, right? So, in the store for a very long time, you were never growing cannabis. You were growing big beefsteak tomatoes, right? And you just, how big could you get these beefsteak tomatoes, right?
Right.
And, we had a couple times where law enforcement came in and tried to trick us, but it's like we just taught them how to grow really big beefsteak tomatoes.
There you go. And there's nothing they can say about that either.
No.
So, if for the person, a lot of the states that have passed laws recently have allowed for individual grow opportunities for people to grow some at home. But most people, they might try it, especially the baby boomer generation. They're not, ready to step up and start potting plants. Sorry, start growing plants themselves. So for those who might think that it's too daunting, what do you say to them, Jeremy? There is a way for you to do this yourself if you want to grow your own medication.
Yeah, I think when people get into growing, they think it's so technical, and they just get lost in everything that's out there. You have a million vendors and a million nutrients and all these different things, and if you just kind of simplify it, I think you can really find a system that works well for everybody.
We actually, one of the things in the show is Chris, my cousin. We go back and forth in the show. It's kind of the odd couple funny thing. And, he's like, gets a little, oh, yeah, I know, man. I know cannabis. I go, you don't know shit. I said, you know how to make lists and then lists. Too much coffee, smoke too many cigarettes. He goes, no, I know. I go, okay, well, what's the temperature of the soil for the best way for the nutrients to get into the roots? He goes, around 64 degrees. I went, all right, I'm going to challenge you. You and I are going to grow 2 plants each, and we'll see who comes up with the best. That gave us a framework, Montel, to go into one of Jeremy's stores to actually expose what is in the store. And we go through and we have the shopping spree of what to get. All right. Very funny because I show up at the counter with the exact amount of nutrients, a perfect indoor tent, the right LED light. I have a package that's about $1,000 that you can grow 6 plants in. Chris shows up with $15,000 worth of
Jim's paying for it, of course.
No, and he put on my credit card. I went, what are you doing?
That's insane. But you could walk, Jeremy, you could walk someone through basically how to, and they watch your show. So they could literally watch along with you, like this whole house and this whole plant, figure out how to do this, right?
Yeah, it's a great package.
Next to each other. We set up 2 tents next to each other, and we, through the comedy of us competing and arguing, we actually show how to do it in your own garage with a tent, So we show the nutrients, we show the 21 days where you start to prune, when it is done, we show the curing of it, and then we have a competition at the end. So a judge thing at the end. It's pretty funny. You should have been one of the judges.
I know. It should have been on for you, my brother. I'll tell you, I got to get out there. One of these seasons, I got to get out there with you.
Let's do it next season.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I really would love to.
We'll have you walking around, going, with Jeremy going, oh, she. Yeah, you're right. Belushi doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Jim, bring up a cup. Let me talk to Jeremy about how we're going to change that greenhouse.
It would be so much fun, my friend. Okay. Jeremy, if there is a particular rig or a particular system that you would recommend to people, what would it be?
Jeremy, that's your shop because you know, they have a 44,000 square foot, facility that holds everything. So it is the Walmart. GrowGeneration is the Walmart of what you need to grow cannabis, grow anything really, beef steak, tomatoes too. So
Right.
dumb.
I think I think every customer is a little bit different, right? And where their mindset is. Some people are more science driven. Some people are really busy. They're just trying to produce, medicine for themselves. And I think you got to look at each individual person and really get a read on what is their vision. What are they trying to do? And that's kind of how I attack this and how GrowGeneration attacks it. You get a nice old lady that walks into the store and she's trying to produce her own medicine. We're trying to have this happen at a very minimal cost, right? We don't want it to affect them, in their pocket to where it's, now it's a struggle. You want to show people that this can be done. This can be done at an affordable rate, and growing your own medicine or growing your own cannabis is pretty simple once you get the hang of it. Is there a learning curve? Absolutely. It's agriculture, right? But I think with the right people around you and dealing with the right individuals, when that help is there and you listen, you can pick it up pretty quickly.
What's the biggest challenge that most people will face when they try to do this for the first time for themselves?
And I think the biggest challenge is in their head, right? It's thinking that this is so complicated. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start, right? So I think the biggest challenge is, where do I start? And if you can give them a starting point, then they kind of have a path to follow to get to the end point. And I think that's the biggest challenge is, where do I start? I'm looking at all this stuff. What do I need? I need all of this. You guys have tons of stuff in here. No, you don't need all of this. This is, there's different styles. There's different ways of growing cannabis. There's different methods, different mediums, different nutrients. And there's so many ways to produce good quality cannabis.
Montel, I gotta tell you, just when we started this show, you said, "How did you do in that temperature?" It was 115. I beat you by 1 degree. It didn't kill them. These plants are so resilient that you can make a mistake. I mean, there was one last season we brought some seeds of Santa Marta Gold, and you'll understand that their maturing time is longer because they came from Colombia than ours. We were done in 10 weeks. These girls wanted to go 14 weeks, and so they went into November. They got nailed with 3 nights of 22 degrees below. I'm not below 0, 22 degrees. Killed them, Montel. And it's in the show, Growing Belushi, about how I kill another plant. Brown dead, right? I mean, dead. And I was like, well, pull those little sick buds off and see what it's like. They rolled it, smoked it. It was great.
Still fine.
It was like girls, they're dead and they're still delivering the medicine. So when you're a consumer and you're growing a medical plant, your 6 plants that you are allowed to grow, like Jeremy said, there are some simple starts: soil, water, not too much, the plant, watching it, loving it, really watching them. That relationship with that plant will take you to another place, but you can't screw up too bad, because in the end, it's still going to work.
Absolutely.
And you'll get better and better, and you'll produce better and better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Jim, have you developed, this is the last time we talked, you got any new products or any new strains or anything that you've been working on?
Well, we have the Captain Jack strain, which we've had because of the greenhouses that Jeremy and GrowTech has put in the environment, because she's a very sensitive girl. It's a landrace strain from the mountains, of Masha Sharif, the bottom of the Kush Mountains. It's the Captain Jack plant that he brought over these seeds in 71 and 72. And he was the weed kind of dealer for Saturday Night Live. This was the stuff that Kenny and those guys were smoking and creating these great things. So I have that strain, which is very specific and very challenging. She's very finicky. So we're releasing that one out. I have these strains that I captured from Colombia. We got a full greenhouse in this GrowTech greenhouse. They are thin, sativa, green. They're just so happy right now in this environment because we can control the humidity. They're used to tropical humidity.
Right.
And it's dry up in Oregon. So the first round, so we have those strains coming. I had a byproduct of some CBD that I created for my dog. And it really worked on my dog, and it's called K9, K9-INE, that we're going to be releasing soon. We just did a blend of chocolate, hashberry, and cherry pie, the two best strains on my farm, for a beautiful, gram joint that's been very popular. So, yeah, we're always, you got to constantly change. Now, I just went into a great partnership with this girl named Jamie at Bang Chocolate, and she is in 10 states. And so we're making a Blues Brothers chocolate because I think the new consumer, the start is with chocolate.
Right.
Because you can control, you know this as well as anybody, that people want a controlled experience.
Correct.
And they're afraid to try flour.
A recreatable experience.
Recreatable that they know they can do. You drink a beer, you know how you're going to feel. You smoke a joint, you never know until you've had experience that. But with edibles, with chocolate, I take 2.5 milligrams of this Bang chocolate and I can go to sleep. I take 5 milligrams in the evening, maybe to have a nice dinner and not argue with whoever I'm with.
Jim, I tell you, this is crazy. There was a period of time, about 5 years ago, I had a pretty severe stroke, and I survived it. I'm 100% back from it. I maybe have a few minor residual symptoms that are left over from it, but I had the type of stroke that literally normally kills half the people who have it. Leading up to that stroke, I will tell you that I can honestly say this. I know it's pretty much for a fact that there was my level of consumption was borderline ridiculous. And the Bang bars with what was their biggest banger? 140.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Dude, I could have a 140 for breakfast and eat another 140.
You would.
And
by the way,
but wait a minute, brother. I have 140 for breakfast. At lunchtime, have another 140, and still do a speech at 3:00.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
So I was borderline ridiculous there for a little while. But what I found out, which is really kind of crazy, is after my stroke, my tolerance for THC went down to lowered by 75% immediately, and I've never really bounced back. But that's okay, because now, like you, I enjoy that 10. I can enjoy that 10 milligrams or 5 milligrams rather than having to eat 100 to get something out of it. So, yeah.
Did you stop consuming?
Well, here's what happened. I had a stroke, and it put me in the hospital for a month. And then I was in rehab for about 6 weeks. And during that period of time, after I kind of came back to about 15 days after stroke, I started consuming a lot of CBD, tried to get a lot of CBDV, tried to get a lot of the other cannabinoids. Then when I went back to THC, it literally started throwing me for a loop. I mean, almost instantly. I mean, if I sat down, probably 45 days after my stroke with someone that had was literally lit up what I normally would have lit up, and I have my own product. So I have a product that was a vape pen extract where I was using isolate and also mixing CBD back together with it and putting terpenes in it. And my strongest of my vape pens, which was a 95% well, really about a 90% THC, 5% CBD. Boy, the first time I took a hit of that, it knocked me on my ass.
I bet it did.
I'm telling you, it took me by surprise because I was literally at a dinner and I went, "What?" Boom. And I mean, this is something I normally smoke, half that vape pen, in 25, 30 minutes. But I literally went down. And then over the course of the next month or so, I started figuring out, what? This really has less to do with not being titrated. It had more to do with my brain now as processing this a little bit differently than it did
Yeah.
before the stroke. So now, I stay with a 50-50 blend of things. Mostly it's 50-50
I
CBD with
believe
THC.
that's the best. The one to
It is.
one is the best.
I believe so too. I think, and what we're going to start finding out. I don't know if you've seen some of it. You stay up on the recent medical peer-reviewed data that is out? Do you follow that?
As soon as I get rid of the aphids and the rustic mites, then I do a little light reading.
Okay, gotcha.
I do. I stay up on it pretty well.
Well, you saw that recently that there's, I think, since COVID, there's been about 24 studies around the world, of which 12 of them have yielded peer-reviewed, published documentation talking about the fact that now we are starting to really truly start to dig in deeper in some of those secondary cannabinoids, looking at things like CBDV, looking at things like THCA non-heated,
Yeah.
and looking at the way that they literally respond, and they're having amazing effect on anybody on the entire spectrum. So people who have from Asperger's to or any of the spectrum disorders, they're starting to show in clinical trials using animal models how efficacious some of these other cannabinoids are when it comes to illness. Why? Because they do things to the synapses in the brain. So for me, I noticed immediately I started recovering better from my stroke, and I do a couple of other things, but I started recovering. I mean, almost like astronomically faster when I started ensuring that I was taking in some CBD, CBDV, making sure that I had some CBG if I could get it. When I started taking it, I started noticing that boom, I kind of bounced back, and technically, I really am other than if you saw my brain on a CAT scan, you would know that I had a stroke. But most of the doctors that I see can't figure out that I have ever had one. And then literally, I had a stroke that was the size of a stroke that normally kills 50% of the people who have it. As a matter of fact, within a month of my stroke, what was it? Luke Perry had his stroke and died. John Singleton had his stroke and died. They had similar strokes to mine. They were hemorrhagic cerebellar hemorrhagic strokes, killed both of them. I bounced back, and I am absolutely 100% convinced that was my cannabinoid usage before the stroke and after that has really been a significant part of my recovery, and that's part of what I think when I go back for a second to that whole education idea is that they have looked at cannabis in Israel since 2010 as a geriatric drug, and most people in the United States don't even understand that from about 1982 to date, we were funding research in Meshulam's laboratory in Israel that helped identify things like the endocannabinoid system, helped identify what THC was, helped identify what CBD was. But now we're starting to really understand a little bit more about, those possible 250 different cannabinoids that exist in this plant. And to say CBD, THC, that's great. That's yesterday's conversation. We need to start having today's conversation.
If you want the real information, you really go to Israel, because look at all the studies they did with like violent tendencies on the spectrum and giving them CBD and CBG, and I mean it really acted as a typical Western medicine without the side effects, right?
Absolutely. And we also know that when we take a look at things like, certain cannabinoids help to strangle the blood supply of tumor cells. So, and we're starting to dig deeper into that as we go. And, I'm so heartened by the fact that, when you go to California, in some places you walk into a dispensary, and dispensaries, maybe some of the bud tenders don't have the knowledge that they should have to even explain what they're selling, but they are now putting more products in the marketplace that have more of the minor cannabinoids included in them when you use them, and even increasing them a little bit. I have a product line that's been out, and I'm getting ready to relaunch it. I'm doing my CBD line with a company out of New Jersey, and I will probably, partner with them, or have another company I'm working with to do a THC line. But I believe very strongly in combining THC with CBG, combining with
The
CBDV,
It's
using some of the acid forms, putting those together, putting those back in as isolates to enhance the level. I mean, most if you smoke a joint now, most joints have probably less than 0.001% CBG. Well, if I can bring that CBG up to 0.1%, you don't know how impactful that 0.1% in the difference between that point 0.1 and 0.001 is for cellular homeostasis.
Wow.
It's just,
Wow.
that's a
Well,
little
you thought this
thing.
out. In the show Growing Belushi, my sister-in-law Judy, John's widow, uh, uh, had gotten cancer, and we bring that out in the show. And she went through chemo, and I went to this woman, Dr. Rachel Knox in Portland, and her mother done. Well, you should talk to them.
I
They've
should.
done a lot of. Oh, they're beautiful, beautiful women. And I brought my sister-in-law to them to discuss. They're very scientific about what cannabinoids affect what cancer, and how these cannabinoids go in and really go to the cancer cells. Get out, you're dead. Didn't anybody tell you you're dead? Go. And she puts it in a really funny word. But in the show, we use a full spectrum oil. And it depends on the type of cancer, which strains you want to use to create that FSO.
Yep.
And we put her on a regimen of this full spectrum oil. And now at the end of the show, she's cancer free. But what I did was it was a storyline that could bring in some of the science. And so, but your producer should write this name down, Dr. Rachel Knox. Check her out on YouTube. She does a basic thing about endocannabinoids, but she's far beyond it. And they're out of Portland.
Great. I'll do that. I'll look for her for sure. I have her on.
Lovely conversation. And the lovely ladies.
Absolutely. Well, I got a question for you, Jeremy, because, being in the industry of providing the equipment to grow, there's a lot of conversations right now about the fact that in several other states around the country, the cannabis industry is, not really paying very close attention to sustainability, not paying very close attention to consumption of natural resources. I mean, several states, you find that the cannabis industry is consuming, far greater resources than any other farm product that's being grown. And we've got to go back to what Jim was saying. Let's remember that this is a weed that didn't necessarily need the technical punch behind it that we're getting behind it, but now we're getting so far behind it with such a technical cadre or box and toolkit that we're drawing more natural resources in the growing of a weed than we really should be. And that's going to be something that this industry is going to get some pushback on in about a year or two. What are you doing to help us, correct that?
Well, I
LED,
think when you're
LED is the first one. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I think when you're designing systems, you want to design under sustainability, right? Water usage is a big deal right now. You're starting to see regulation of electricity, how many watts per square foot you can use. DLC certified lighting. So you're seeing these standards come across the industry pretty rapidly. And I think you're going to continue to see that, especially the new states that tend to come on, southern states. I think you're going to see a lot more regulations and how they're growing, what they can do. When I'm designing facilities, it's different everywhere, right? So from sewage systems, what can we put in the septic? What can we put back to the state? Do we have to dilute it? Are we, sometimes regulation also makes you use a lot of natural resources. So I think it's a balance between regulation and what does cannabis really need to grow safely, right? And I think as you educate, as more of the states become more educated in what can be used, and just stop just coming up with this like, nope, this is what you have to do because we said so. And we start to put a panel together of different people who are in the industry that have been educated for a long time that can help the other states also start to learn what we need. Then I think we find a balance, right?
I mean, we're taking a look at what's going to happen here, not in 10 years and 20 years, but in the next 2 to 3 years in all of the southwestern states. I mean, the Colorado River is drying up.
Correct.
The deals that were struck 50, 60 years ago for water distribution among states from Arizona to California, New Mexico, Colorado, these are changing overnight. They're going to have to have a huge summit here within the next 2 to 3 years to try to figure out what goes on right now. And we're starting to see the fact that places like Arizona and others are going down, 1,900 feet and sucking up subterranean aquifers to the point that, the surface level ground is dropping by 20 and 30 and 40 feet. So, I would bet that even though most states looked at cannabis as a critical business during this pandemic, we may be one of the first that gets cut out of the loop when it comes to getting water, just because that's a way for those in power to reign power over the industry.
Correct.
Yeah.
What's more important, food or cannabis, right? And that's what the question is going to come down to in the end in some of these states.
And where we don't even recognize the fact that cannabis can be food. Because we also understand that the seeds are, I just recently signed on with a company out of one of only a very few of cannabis companies on the African continent. And, there's 4 out of the 57 states have legalized cannabis in Africa now. South Africa being one of them, legalized it for growing, processing, and exportation, but not for their own use.
Yeah, kind of like Colombia did.
Colombia.
Colombia did. Colombia is about to change that, though, soon. I think that may happen within the next month. We're down there. But
I own a company in Colombia, and we've just kind of been staying still right now because, even entering the market of this oil production, and it's very difficult. It's a who game.
Right. And you got to know the right people to get the right licenses to be vertical. And I'm been very well aware, but in places like, again, in Africa, I'm signing with a company that literally has 1 million acres under contract. 1 million acres, but they have 1 million acres, throughout Lesotho and South Africa, that's going to have to figure out how to win that battle on water.
Correct.
And the resources to be able to actually generate products. So you're in an area of the world where you may not need greenhouses as much as you're going to need controlled spacing. You may be able to continue to do some bigger outdoor growing than you would in the United States. But southwestern United States, I think within the next 4 or 5 years, it's going to be, one of the most expensive places in America to grow cannabis.
Agreed. It's gonna, it's gonna be exponentially expensive, and there's gonna be fights and wars about it. And I mean, people are taking water from people's streams, and no one cared before, right? But now once the water gets low, it's like, hey, that's my water.
Yeah.
So,
okay. That's what's happening right now. It's my water.
And you're seeing it, right? So, same thing with Africa. When you talk about Africa, what do you think what's their testing? You know, what are they held to against for standards? Because I think you're going to find that's going to be super challenging
What
to operate at a million acres.
Well, I think what's going to happen in there is the fact that, first off, most of the companies that are forming are non-African entities. They have partnered with African entities. So you've got, Canadian companies, you have US companies, you have some European companies who are going down there trying to take advantage of the resources of land and soil and those things. So we'll have to keep a close eye on it and make sure that the regulation is there. Because I mean, that's like right now, I guess everybody's been looking at China, and China just jumped into the hemp business like with 2 yardsticks.
Correct.
However, how clean? I mean, would you really consume some CBD out of China today? Hell no.
No.
Right. I do like that about regulation. In Oregon, these guys really want to be the safest and the most cooperative. I got to say, the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Control Board, they listen to us. They listen to us, and they do work hand in hand. In the testing, it's again, I said at the beginning, go to dispensary, tested. I think the testing is the most important thing in this great regulation time that we have. Safety.
I agree. I think one of the things now that the industry should try to do is push the regulators to understand to knock off this bullshit with 60 layers of packaging. We're just filling up landfills with 60 layers of crap that's not necessary. And I can go to
Spot with me.
I'm
Don't
with you, brother.
start talking about shit.
I've been down this path that you've been down, my brother. I'll tell you, with a couple of different products, having to figure out how to make this child-proof crap.
You can go one step further. How about waste inside a facility? You're taking cannabis waste. You got to dilute it by 50%. You got to put this in. I mean, this is non-usable, non-psychoactive parts of the plant. And they're making you jump through hoops just to get rid of waste. We could be composting this. We could be making soils. We could be
making bricks. We could be making batteries. I mean, I know you read recently, or that.
I gotta say, Oregon's very reasonable that way, and we do get to use a lot of that waste in our mulching process. We do have a really nice cycle of what's going on in that farm. But as far as plastics and boxing and the stuff that they make, that stuff is really it's mind-boggling. We actually used to have the garbage guy come every 2 weeks. We just had to up it to every week. It's like, what are we throwing out here? What is going on? Why is our garbage doubled?
That would be a good segment on your show, my friend. I mean, just to be able to point it out so that the public and the masses are educated on the fact that the administrators of these programs are really killing us, by
That's a great segment.
That'd be a great
segment. They are. I mean, they're killing us with regulation. I mean, it's like Jim can do it in Oregon, but you can't do it in Michigan, or you can't do it in Mass, but you can do this in California. It's like, you want a standard across the country, but right now the people who are making the standards are so uneducated. You don't want them to create a standard.
Correct. No, I think it's going to take us, like I say, I think probably 5 to 10 years before we have a mindset that this is a favorable industry, one that people don't just want to let exist. They want to help thrive or help the industry to thrive. Once we get that mindset out of these politicians, they recognize the value. It's not like, oh, we just had that so we get the tax dollars. No, you need this as an industry to move mankind forward. Again, go back to the Wright brother thing, I mean, and we also, if we just went back to history and recognize that without hemp and cannabis, man wouldn't be where they are today.
Well, you said the phrase, and I think it's really that spiritual vortex that this relationship with this plant has brought me, and that is it's a bigger, you said it, move mankind forward, and that's what this being involved with this plant has kind of reshaped me and my purpose. And I'm so glad that I fell into this.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you did too, because I think your voice will be one of the voices that helps to move us forward, Jim. You really, I don't even think you understand the full impact of what you're doing right now, even though you do, but I don't think you do because
Well,
you
I'm
know.
too busy chasing the goddamn aphids, and I don't really know what's going on.
Gotcha. What is
No,
next
but
for you,
it's
my brother?
true. I mean, it's one reason, honestly, where I really like to work with Jim. I see these people in this industry, that have star power, and they're using it to profit and make money. But Jim has been completely different from meeting him. I mean, he's all in. He's about this plant. He has the same mindset that I have, and I really think that's, what draws the connection for me. I like to put myself around people when I'm working on projects that have that same mindset. And, we're all in this together. Cannabis is here to stay, right? So
And
the
and
more
people need to understand you were saying there the other people who want to make money. We haven't even scratched the surface of the amount of money that's going to be made off of this product
correct,
over the course of the next 20 years. I mean, when we finally recognize that we can take some of that material that they're making you know, dilute down
correct.
60%, and we take those materials and we give them to another company that can burn them and turn them into. I just read an article about the fact that the bark off of the stalks can be burned multiple times and burned down to a product that's like a graphene, where we know now that the material from cannabis or from hemp has a better capability of storing electricity than graphene. So we can take a product that is lighter and make a more sustainable and better battery. So what we're putting in cars that will never go into a landfill, you could literally create a battery out of what we've been throwing in landfills from waste product from cannabis.
It's amazing how much money has been made just from being THC focused, right? Like if
Yes.
you look at what cannabis is, it's what have we done? We've learned how to increase THC for the masses. And there's very little people in this industry that are working with the secondary cannabinoids and really trying to figure out what they do. I think that'll change in the next couple of years as you see
Yes.
some of these licenses come out for research and stuff like that. But
And I've been interviewing lots of different suppliers and providers who now are starting to recognize the viability of some of those secondary cannabinoids. And like I said, I just signed a contract with a couple of different companies that literally we are going after it objectively, going after making sure that our products contain those other cannabinoids. And then we'll start to see, I think, when people start consuming that and feeling a little bit different than they did using the other products, then the rest of the industry is going to jump aboard. What's next for you, Jim? What's on the horizon?
Well, while we were talking, I just got a text from my showrunner on Growing Belushi. He's ready to show me the first episode. So what's next for me is I got to see this episode and reshape it. And I'm nervous about it and excited about it. So my next thing is really launching this show in October, releasing this canine brand, this Bang chocolate brand, and I don't know. I'm just kind of a gypsy right now, man. I'm in Chicago. I'm going to New York to put my son into school this Friday. I'm going back to the farm. I'm going to California. I don't know, man. I got a lot of miles.
There you go, my brother. Well, hopefully I get out to California.
Miles.
I get out to that left coast. I'm gonna come out and try to sit down with you at least for a few minutes, my friend.
Oh, I would love that, man. I would. We have a little angel cafe that we built. My cousin Chris, Freddie came and cooked there. It was crazy. We'd serve you a beautiful lunch and it's only got one table, but the food is free. But the landlord is an asshole. That's me.
Hopefully it's all infused food, right?
Well, no. Chris,
no.
Well, I tell you what, maybe what I'll do for you when I come out there, I'll cook you an infused meal myself, brother.
well, there's the segment right there.
There's a segment right there, my friend. Well, Jeremy, what's next for you, friend?
I don't know. I'm constantly just trying to educate myself further. I think getting into right now, I've just been brought into the Last Prisoner project.
Yes.
So I really want to kind of dive into that and see what GrowGeneration can bring to the table for, it's
It is.
interesting.
Thank you for bringing that up, Jeremy.
It's such a rewarding thing, Jeremy. I got to tell you something. I've been working with them for the last year, and we were instrumental in helping to get a couple of people released. And there's no greater, hug to your heart than knowing that you did something to get somebody who was, falsely imprisoned and wrongly imprisoned out and get their freedom back. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I have my own history behind it, and it's something that really resonates with me. I wanted to do something outside of just building grows and showing people how to make a lot of money, right? Because that's kind of the bottom line where people are with these investors, and really putting my time into something else that could possibly mean something. And I think working behind GrowGeneration and using them as a platform. And we are involved with the majority of the large cultivators across the country, right? And if we can educate them where we came from, how we got there, and why they're sitting in the chair they're sitting today, hopefully we can pull some dollars out of them and get them to donate, and let them see this cause. I really hope it works. And I think, when you ask me what's next for me, I want to put a lot of focus into that. And I really hope that this platform that GrowGeneration has allows me to do that.
And
Well,
speaking of that, Montel, at the MJ Unpacked convention in October, also along with the MJ Biz, Danny Aykroyd and the Blues Brothers, we're going to be at the House of Blues on the 21st, and it is a benefit for the Last Prisoners Project, which, by the way, GrowGen has been very generous in supporting this event. And everybody is invited, and you got to go to the MJ Unpacked website to get the tickets. It's limited, but I think we're going to raise a lot of money for it. Steve's going to be there, Steve D'Angelo, and we try to do what we can to keep this awareness alive. And then, by the way, we're having great success.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Louisiana, man, just dropped some great news down there and letting people go. And, that was the state that really started this whole thing,
I know.
Right. Well, I tell you guys, I can't say thank you enough for you're going to look at your watches and go, holy moly, we went that long. Yeah, we did go that long. Thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing yourselves with my viewers. They're going to love this, and I wish you nothing but the best. And I hope that you stay safe and stay well.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you,
Absolutely,
man. It's always good to see you.
It's always good to see you. I'm telling you, I hold me to it, my brother. I will come out and I will cook an infused meal for you.
You are welcome. You are welcome. And the cafe will be running. We even have a cappuccino maker. So,
ooh, there you go. There you go.
You'll love the property.
But you did say the proprietor was an asshole, but that's all right.
Well, and by the way, Chris, my cousin, who's doing the cooking, he always complains to the side. He goes, the landlord is an asshole. He eat for free and he never leaves.
he softens up. He softens up.
There you go. Well, thank you guys. And thank you for tuning in to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.